Hello and welcome to Wednesday webinar. I'm Julia Hartman from the Bantax National Accountants Group. We've got some beautiful video for you in the background of Sydney Harbour and Parramatta River. Tonight I'd like to talk to you about August's case. It's about the big age-old question that I get asked a lot. Would the tax office consider me to be in a profit-making venture when I buy and sell a property, or am I doing it for investment purposes? Now, it's also a question I hate to answer because, look, there's so many cases that go either way, and we will cover a few of them in this webinar. So, the reason it's so important is if it's held on investment, then you get the 50% capital gains tax discount. But if the tax office finds that you've bought the property with the thought in your mind at the start that you're going to sell that for a profit and that's your dominant purpose, then you're in business and you don't get the 50% discount. It's just taxed as normal profit. Now when it comes to residential property, if you do substantial renovations or you actually build on land or something like that, it gets even worse. GST can be involved. But I've nagged you enough about that one. I'm just going to look now at August's case and some of the things that were taken into account by the courts. So the question is, what were your thoughts when you bought the property, and how do you go about proving what those thoughts were? Because the onus of proof is on you. Now in August's case, I think his main problem was he wasn't a very credible witness. He did tend to contradict himself, and basically I think the courts felt that he was not taking it very seriously. Nevertheless, there are a couple of scary findings in it. So, back in 1997 through to 1999, August bought a strip of shops and he did them up. He got really good long tenants and he kept them. He didn't sell them until 2006. So he kept these shops for between 7 and 9 years, and in that time he created quite a valuable asset in the standard that he bought them up to and the type of tenants he acquired. Now you would think after 7 to 9 years you could argue he held them for investment, but no, that wasn't good enough. One of the problems that he had was he had a family friend that was in the business of buying strips of shops and doing them up and getting good long-term tenants and then selling them off. And he actually consulted that friend before he bought, and he told them that the friend said, oh yes, buy those shops because they're at a really good low value and you'll never make a loss on them. You'll always be able to sell them one day for a profit. So that was the first bit of damning evidence against him. So you've got to be careful about who you talk to and what your thoughts are. Not long after he'd secured a final long-term tenant and everything was in position, which is 6 months before he actually sold the shops, he consulted a real estate agent to ask how much the real estate agent thought the strip of shops would be worth. And he was quite surprised by the figure that he was told. Now he told the court that he was just curious to see how much they were worth once he'd finished them and that, but the court took the view that, well, if he had a bank valuation he didn't need to consult a real estate agent, so he was really asking the real estate agent with the intent of selling them. Now it's interesting to note that the bank valuation was 1.83 million and he sold them for 2.33. Now, August argued that, well, a bank valuation is always very low for bank purposes, and to get a real valuation you had to ask a real estate agent. And I think those prices sort of give you a pretty good example of that, but no, the courts didn't accept that. And how the sale came about was apparently the real estate agent then came back to August and started to pester him to sell the shops, and that he had what August considered a really crazy great offer. And the market was high, so August couldn't resist and he sold, and that's August's side of the story. The courts didn't wear much of that at all. They also pointed out that he had no change of circumstances, so he had no need to sell them. It's one of my favourites actually, the change of circumstances. And one final point that was a bit against him, he had bought and sold other properties in the past, but then he didn't hesitate to declare them as business income. He felt in the case of the shops they were more of a long-term hold and they should be on capital account. So there's a few things to give you an idea of just how hard it is to prove your thoughts and what little things can come back to bite you. And what we can take away from August's case is 4 major points. And when you look at it this way, you realise just how silly it can get in court. First of all, don't take any advice from anyone as to whether you should buy the shops, because if you're getting it, or take it only from people that don't have shops themselves and don't know what they're doing. Never find out how much your properties are worth. You don't even need to know that apparently to hold them. And don't sell when the market's good. That's, if you get a really good price, that's not a good time to sell apparently. It's only when you desperately need money or your circumstances have changed. And even came out of the case the suggestion that because he bought them at such a good, low, undervalued price, then he was buying them to make a profit on sale. So don't buy undervalued properties. Now, if you can follow all those 4 rules, you shouldn't be investing in property anyway, but you might get away with a sound argument that you weren't doing it to make a profit, because you wouldn't be doing those things if you were out to make a profit. Anyway, thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope to see you next time.